Yo guys, welcome back to the Campus and Culture podcast. For those who have been with us before, good to see you again. And for those who haven't been here before, the Campus and Culture podcast is a monthly student-led show celebrating Black voices in higher education. Each episode features a Black student from a different course, exploring their university journey, admissions, and passions, alongside interests from professors and industry professionals. Expect honest conversations about academia, STEM, and student life, plus debates, trending topics, plantain topics, and ACS event updates, all in a relaxed space that highlights Black excellence. It's perfect for current students, applicants, and anyone interested in the Black university experience. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube, Spotify, and Apple podcast pages. All links and information will be in the show notes. So, welcome to this episode where we are joined by a very special guest. Someone who, if you go to Imperial and you are a student of color, you definitely should know. He is an incredible person, and I'm privileged to have got to know him over the last few weeks or so. Introducing Professor Wayne Mitchell.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So, just before we begin, how have you been recently?
Other than recovering from a cold, I've been good.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I feel the UK weather changed quite quickly, as we were speaking about before.
Absolutely. But, you know, that's the perils of living in a cold country.
Yeah, of course. I actually wanted to kind of reflect on where we actually met for the first time. Mm-hmm. So for Black History Month, for the audience watching, we did a debate panel / night, and myself and you, we sat on the panel and we answered a few questions about systemic issues to do with racism, being a Black student on campus, being a Black member of faculty. And I think from that evening and from that event, I learned so much from yourself, and I just envisioned in my head that you'd be perfect for the podcast and for the episode. So once again, thank you for being here today. I do appreciate it.
That's quite welcome.
Yeah.
More than welcome.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of just wanted to start off by exploring your role. And so for those who don't know, you are the Associate Provost for EDI at Imperial. Mm-hmm. EDI, I believe, stands for Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion.
That's right.
Yeah. If you had to summarize in a sentence or two, what is your role and what does it entail?
It's a good question. As the Associate Provost, one of the things which we do, and especially the Associate Provost for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, it's part of the role is about looking at the space that we're in and how we occupy that space as individuals. And with our differences, okay, how do we ensure that from our different standpoints that we can also feel included within that space? Actually, there's more about us that unites us than divides us, but often our differences are the things which people amplify. So as a provost, it's kind of like as the associate provost, I should say, it's about ensuring that we're able to work more effectively, irrespective of our differences, that you feel that you have those opportunities to be able to excel, to be able to bring your true, authentic self, to be able to feel as though you belong within this space. So that's the kind of role which I'm looking at helping to develop, to see where the things may potentially be broken or not working as well as they could be, and to try to look at ways that we can pull things together, make them better for everyone. So that's, I would say, would be part of the role. And it's meeting people where they are, but also reporting that back up to the senior management so that they've got a better glimpse of what's actually happening and how we can effect real change.
I think it's such an important responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think it actually relates so much to the title of this episode, which is The Color of Leadership. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I believe it's important for us to see people who look like us and reflect maybe who we might be, where we come from, within these positions of power. And I think yourself being in those conversations, in those rooms where you can implement change for people that look like us, I think is so important. And I think I kind of reflect back onto your own life, and maybe from when you were younger, could you have ever imagined to be where you are now? Like, if you were to talk about growing up, for example.
That's a really very interesting way of putting it. Could I have envisaged myself being at Imperial College? I'll be honest, no.
Okay.
Because having kind of like studied and looked at the whole concept of imperialism, that wasn't something that I wanted to associate myself with, apart from tearing it down.
Yeah.
Bit of a rebel, so well, not a bit of a rebel. I just felt it. So the idea of looking at Imperial College as a potential destination, I'll probably say no. And it was very much a science-based institution when I was younger. It subsequently got a medical school and business school, but when I was at your age, it was predominantly just science, technology. It didn't have the medicine element. And as I wanted to do medicine, it didn't actually cover the course that I was interested in. So aside from the name, I knew about the prestige because one of my best friends actually came to Imperial. Very, very talented young man. And so I knew of the place, but it wasn't somewhere where I looked to say, yeah, I would like to go there, if I'm honest. So ending up here, I wouldn't have said that when I was younger, this is where I would have ended up. It wasn't on my radar at all. And in this particular role, I suppose it depends on how you look at how you viewed life going through. I'm being a bit philosophical here, but I suppose part of it when I was growing up was about that sense of justice. And so the role which I'm in now, I feel probably I was always kind of like destined for a role like this because I always had this sense of what is just. And so from that perspective, I could see myself in this role, but not necessarily being here in this role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting and insightful to hear that from such a young age, the concepts of justice and I think representing a bigger picture was something that you kind of thought about. And I think for people at my age, we don't really think about these bigger world issues. And just from listening from what you've been saying so far, starting, would you say your undergraduate course was medicine?
It wasn't medicine. I did medical sciences.
Medical
I wanted to do medicine. They didn't let me in. Their loss.
Exactly.
That's but from that, I did do medical sciences, and I was contemplating going back and doing medicine. But in the end, I got the bug for natural sciences, for basic sciences, understanding principles and understanding how systems work at a more in-depth level, which I suppose has helped me in this role because it's given me those same skill sets to actually break down the injustices, to go beyond what the surface level may. Sometimes, maybe I'm not a clinician, so I can't be 100% sure, but sometimes it's about people give you symptoms and you say, well, these are the potential things which it could be, and you try to prescribe based on those. But if you really want to fully understand somebody's illness, for example, you have to do further investigations, deep inner investigations, to be able to diagnose the disorder correctly. And that's the element which I really enjoyed doing, is that diagnostic deep dive, breaking it down. And so when it comes to issues related to inclusion or exclusion, equality or equity, it's about breaking down those systems to understand where are the pinpoints within the systems which don't work. And if you're able to do that, then you're able to get a better handle on how you build back the system or build back better.
I think that's, again, so insightful, because I've not really thought about how the two could be intertwined. And it's nice to hear, or interesting, should I say, the logic between how you see the systems being broken down but being built back up to implement changes that you'd like to see. And I think with so much responsibility, being part of the head of EDI at Imperial, and also balancing being a scientist, I believe in immunology.
Immunology, yeah.
Yeah, correct. So how do you navigate the two at the same time, would you say?
It's difficult at times. I jointly do this role as the Associate Provost. So it's myself and Professor Bernadette Byrne. And so we have to share out the tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's responsible for certain things and I'm responsible for other things. But we're in constant communication. And that's another thing which I think is always very important, is being able to communicate effectively. And so, again, balancing that with my other role as in immunology, and I predominantly teach experimental methodology. So when you go into a laboratory, what is it that you need to understand? What's the scientific process which is necessary for you to be able to effectively do your research, biological research? So I teach students how to do that critical thinking. So although it may sound like that they're two different things, I see a lot of similarities, because at the same time what I am doing in my role is about the critical thinking, about dissecting, as I said earlier on, dissecting the problem and working out how we can fix that problem. And it's the same way that when I'm teaching the students, I'm asking them, dissect that problem. Don't take it for face value. See what it is that's underneath, right? And ask the pertinent questions, the relevant questions, which will help you to find answers or solutions or more questions. In most cases, it's better to have subsequent questions, because you're then going into that greater depth of understanding. And that's where we can then start to gain greater insights into what we can do next.
I think I'm just so impressed, because I think people should understand that you do both your roles so well. As part of being the provost of EDI, for EDI, I see you at so many events.
Don't tell anybody.
Doing so much behind the scenes. And I think what's so impressive is knowing that alongside that, about your work and impact in your teaching as a scientist, because I believe in 2018 you actually received an award, the President's Award, for excellence in education. And how did that feel to be recognized for such, an amazing achievement?
If I'm being honest, I was just being me. All right. And it's not like I go out in any ways to say I'm going to do this because there's this award or there's that award. Awards don't really bother me at all. If we get them, fair enough. If we don't get them, fair enough. It's more about how it is that we can help to influence others and help others to reach their potential. And so that's the real motivator for me. What can I do to help you to reach and fulfill your potential? And if people want to recognize that, that's brilliant, right? And I recognize it in others, and I will support people and say, well, you know what, I'll nominate you for this because it's something that you're going to need. And I think from that perspective, it's always good for others to see what you're doing and be able to acknowledge. It's, for want of a better analogy, but it's one which I think is quite pertinent. At funerals, right? Everybody comes out and they say, "Oh, what a wonderful person this person." Well, they might do, they may not, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
they'll say, "Oh, they were really great," and whatever else. And I often ask myself, well, did you actually tell them that while they were living? Did they know that you appreciated them in that way? And if not, why not? Because actually, it's of more benefit to the individual that they know that what they're doing is being appreciated, is being recognized, that you're giving value to what they've done, to the contribution that they've done for you, than for you to just say, "Oh yeah, they're a lovely person," but you never communicate that to them. Because it's about building and helping to build each other up. So I think it's really vitally important that we recognize where people have done things which are noteworthy. And that's not to say for them to brag or anything like that, but just to show appreciation that you've contributed, you've helped me, and we want to recognize and just say thank you.
I think it's interesting because something that we discussed when we met at the debate night was these roles that you yourself find yourself a part of, and these positions to kind of fight injustice and to help those who need it. They shouldn't exist.
No, they
In
shouldn't.
an ideal world, they shouldn't exist. And I think you've kind of touched on my next question about your motivations for taking the role. You're someone who I can see already, and from past experiences, you're a selfless person who aims to work for those who can't help themselves. And I think I also wanted to touch on your interview for the EDI role. When last we spoke, you talked about how in the interview you kind of laid out your ideas on a table when you were at the interview, and you just left it there, and you asked the interviewers figure it out. And I found that so interesting because you wanted them to be involved, but at the same time you didn't do too much but said a lot. And I think, again, if you wanted to just speak more upon that interview and how you felt like it went, and did you actually step out feeling confident you actually got the position?
You can't boast on right. The thing about it is, what I would say is, if you're in an interview situation, the thing that you need to be able to do is, when you step out of the interview, feel that, one, you've had a good conversation, and two, that you've done the best that you can do. If after you've done those two things, right, if you get the job, brilliant. If you don't get the job, at least you know that you've done your best.
Yeah.
Right? Then you don't need to beat yourself up over it and say, "Oh, I wish I had done that," or "I wish I had done this." The question that you're referring to was, they asked me to lay out my vision for EDI, what I would want it to look like at Imperial. And I spent many hours thinking about this vision. What is it that I want? And I came up with a phrase which I still hold by. But I wanted it to be more dynamic than just me telling them, "This is my vision for EDI," right? So what I did was I put some cue cards, and on each cue card there was a word, just one word. And I think it was about 12 or 13 cue cards. And I said, "Okay, you guys asked me for my vision, and here's my vision. Solve it." Now, we're at a science institute. We've got scientists who love solving problems, etc. And I saw them, every person in there, from the provost to the deans of faculties, all of them taking a card, looking at the cards, shuffling them round until they constructed it into the sentence. And the sentence said, "EDI is an active practice for everyone, not a reactive process for a few." Now, that in itself just that statement tells you what the vision is. It tells you the vision. But I didn't want to just tell them the vision. I wanted them to see the vision in action. So everybody was involved. Everybody had to be actively involved in the process, which they were. And then they realized, or I hope they realized, that it wasn't a reactive process. It wasn't because they were responding to this thing which happened here or this thing which happened here while they were involved in constructing this sentence. So as far as I was concerned, I don't know. I walked out and I felt I've done a good job. If they give it to me, fair enough. If they don't give it to me, fair enough. I know that I've presented myself as best as I can. I've answered the questions as best as I can. The decision now isn't mine, it's theirs. So I can sleep comfortably based on that.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice for, people applying to university or even to graduate positions. It's about ensuring you leave there feeling satisfied, that you've left it out literally or physically or imaginally all on the table.
That's right.
And by doing your best, I think it just ensures that you can be satisfied with the decision.
That's right.
Whether they accept you, whether they don't, but at least you tried.
Absolutely.
So I actually then want to explore more onto what you've done so far.
Mm-hmm.
And this list is very long. So I think you should be amazed, and I'm sure all that you've done to kind of impact, the Black experience and also for those who are of colour at Imperial.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to read a few of them and kind of ask you to maybe choose your favourite, or if it's not on this list, tell me about an experience which really stood out to you.
Mm-hmm.
So something that you were part of creating was the Reach Society. And its purpose was to encourage...
Right. I've been involved with the Reach Society. I wasn't a founding member, but I'll tell you about the Reach Society in a second.
So being involved, regardless, you've been a part of encouraging and motivating and inspiring young boys and men to develop their potential and to make viable transitions into adult life and pathways into STEM and business. The Imperial Sickle Cell Group being involved in that as well, leading research and advocacy dedicated to improving and understanding treatment of sickle cell. The Race Equity Charter, something that Imperial only joined in 2018, but you also being a part of that, aiming to improve the representation, progression, and success of the minority ethnic staff and students within higher education. And I think just touching on the Race Equity Charter, what surprised me to learn was not all universities are a part of that, which for me seems like such an obvious thing to involve yourself in. And from that short list, I'm sure there's so much more that you've done. Which one would you say stood out to you most, and which one do you feel you left a true lasting impact on?
Right. So I'm going to clarify a couple points.
Yeah.
Right. So the Reach Society was started by a good friend of mine, Donald Palmer, Dwayne Neal, OBE, Rob Neal, OBE. They're not brothers, just have the same surname.
Yeah.
And there was another one who'll tell me off for forgetting his name. But those were the founding individuals. And that came about because at the previous Labour government had set up a scheme an initiative where they said that young black boys needed role models, male role models to be able to show them and to encourage them into pursuits of academia, etc. And Rob Neal was one of the role models, as was Dwayne. And they called it, and it was called the Reach Project or something along those lines. And when the government was changed, things happened, and they were just the government had left, there was no funding available to it. And Rob, Dwayne and Donald came together and said, we can't just let this lie. We can't just leave it like this. So they then took on and they developed the Reach Society. So for 15 years now, they have been developing and utilizing young men or male role models and giving them a platform for young boys and young girls to come and enter into the space and see what it is that they've been doing. And I've been privileged that for the past about 8 years, having been here at Imperial, I've been able to take a group of students to become role models for younger students so that they can see Imperial as a potential area where they may want to come and study. And I utilize and encourage students from the ACS, also PhD students and master's students to give that, I call it the one step up. Yeah. So it's all very well them seeing me, but they'll look at me as dad or granddad, right? They want to see people who are more of their age group, who are telling them the stories. So I'm just a facilitator. I'm just saying, well, I think it would be really useful for you to be in that space, encouraging the next generation so that we're developing a pipeline from the youngsters looking up to say, okay, we would like to come to Imperial, or we'd like to do what you're doing. What are you doing? Where then they're saying that, well, we're at Imperial and we're doing biochemistry, or we're doing medicine, or we're doing some kind of engineering. And that gives them a vision of where they could potentially be. And that's part of what I like doing. I want to see those connections. With the sickle cell group, again, that was an initiative which was led by Professor Julie Makani from Tanzania, Mumbili University in Tanzania. But she was at Imperial on a Provost Visiting Professor program, okay? And she was on the first Provost Visiting Professor program, and that's a program where the provost at the time, who was Ian Walmsley, Professor Ian Walmsley, in consultation with Imperial as one, they were looking to see, how do we address this situation of underrepresentation of Black academics at Imperial. And I had just recently completed a study on student sense of belonging, sense of identity, and had said that actually we don't have much representation, right? So is there a way that we can have guest lecturers, and academics come in and talk to our students, etc., from a underrepresented background? And Professor Walmsley went a step further and said, well, why don't we put a scheme together which is a visiting professor scheme, specifically earmarked and designed for that purpose? He did that, and one of the upshots of that was Professor Julie Makani came over, and she connected with, her specialty is sickle cell. And she said, as part of my lasting legacy, she didn't say it like this, but part of her legacy has been, I want to see what, with all of the expertise which we have in sickle cell at Hammersmith, at Imperial, how can we convene that together to make something which is lasting, a legacy which can change the perception of sickle cell and actually be a force for good. And so she set up that initiative to say, let's work together so that we can start to look at how we can change policy. We can start to look at how we change treatment plans. We've got patient advocates. It's not just about the science, it's about the individuals who are affected by sickle cell. What are the things that they need, and how can we convene those things together so that we become one powerful voice pursuing and talking and discussing about sickle cell and its impact on our community. The other ones which you mentioned, there's so many. What was the third one?
The Race Equity Charter.
The Race Equalities Charter. And you mentioned about the fact that not all universities are signed up. Now, with the Race Equalities Charter, the previous Associate Provost for EDI, Professor Stephen Curry, it's very interesting. Again, it was whilst I was doing my study on student sense of belonging, etc. I went to an advanced HE event, which was about diversifying leadership. Okay, and I met Professor Stephen Curry there, and he had recently started his role. So I didn't meet him here at Imperial. No. I met him at this event. And we got talking about it, and he said, "Well, would you like to sit on the charter?" And I said, "Yeah, let's. I'm more than happy to." And the thing about the Race Equalities Charter is it's about looking at the snapshot, having an understanding of what it is from a race equity perspective. What are we doing in that space? What are the challenges, and what are the things that we need to be doing more of? So from that perspective, I joined the charter, and I joined the self-assessment team, and I was looking at it from the point of view of student progression, right? Number of black students who attend, not just black students, but that was one of my focal areas. It's all students from international. So looking at it from the perspective of the students who are coming in, whether they're homegrown students or whether they're international students, what are the proportions, what are their experiences, what are their attainment rates or their awarding gaps, are there how does that impact on their sense of belonging, retention rates, completion rates, progression rates? All of these things we wanted to have a look at and to determine what can we do to improve that. So as a result of that, we submitted and we got a bronze award. And now, and in my position as Associate Provost for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, I am in charge of a small team who are actively involved with now looking to do the renewal of the charter. Okay. And so now what we're looking at is, again, taking a snapshot to see what progress has been made in the past 5 years since we did the last submission. What things can we celebrate? And we've got a lot to, believe it or not, we've got a lot to celebrate. Yep. We've got things like the Black Inclusivity Catalyst, which is a series of activities which we run. For the past 4 years, we've run it. So we've got an Empower event, which looks at Black PhD students, okay? And to see what is it that those Black PhD students need on their journey to getting a PhD. We also have the Black Graduates Career Conference, which we run annually. It's the biggest, I think it's the only dedicated Black Graduates Career Conference where we have over 20, 30 exhibitors who come from different companies and give an opportunity for graduates to think, and this is not just Imperial graduates, this is graduates, Black graduates from across the country. Last year we actually had a graduate from as far as Texas.
Wow.
Who had come to Texas, Nigeria, had come. They'd heard about the event. They came to hear about it, to be involved. And it's those kinds of things which are about creating opportunities for individuals to be able to find out what it is that they, if they don't know it, they wish they knew it, and how we can provide that space for them to gain better understanding. Those are just a few. There are other things. I've got a podcast called Belonging as well. This was, again, something which came out of the research which I did. And so working with the Race Equality Staff Network, Imperial as one. We set up a podcast that's not as sophisticated as this one, right? But we set up a podcast called Belonging, where I've interviewed about 250 people, talking about and finding about their experiences, people from Black, Asian and minoritized communities. What is it that gives them their sense of belonging? What is it that helps them to feel that they are accepted in society? How has that helped them on their journey? And one of the things which I love about that is it's like therapy for me, because it gives me an insight into how, even though we're different, how there are so many similarities between the experiences of different communities, okay? And how they've used those to elevate themselves and elevate others into positions where they can then become role models for others. There's lots of things which we've tried to do, develop scholarship programs to give individuals the opportunity who may not have had those opportunities. There's a common theme that you might be hearing. It's about giving opportunities to those who feel that they're underrepresented, giving them the opportunities to be able to excel and show exactly what they can do. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think you actually touched on my next point, which was about the Imperial as One movement and your Belonging podcast series, which actually is a favourite of mine, actually, out of what you've created and done so far. And I was actually able to watch one of your episodes. It was called When Will Our Change Come? And I believe you did it with a man called William from Birkbeck University.
Yeah.
And I think some of the key takeaways I took from that is the system wasn't built with us in mind. And it's trying to now navigate having to adapt to us being there. And I think what we are experiencing as people of color from many different backgrounds is we're not thriving, we're surviving. And I think when you talk about, so something that the audience may not know about is retention rates with students of color at university. When you see students gain admissions to, for example, Imperial, excellent, there's great celebration with that. But it's about checking on those who actually continue to stay at Imperial, to excel, to progress through their years of education. Because one thing that you may notice, not just at Imperial, but at many universities, is, Black students will drop out after their first year or their second year, not due to a lack of knowledge or a lack of skill, or just maybe due to a lack of guidance and not being able to adapt to the demands that, let's say, for example, Imperial requires of you. And I think something that really touched me, which I think is a favorite saying of yours, something that I've noticed you say a lot, is dare to dream.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's to be the change you want to see. And I think there's something that I like to call a herd mentality, where a lot of us will say, we see an issue and we'll be like, oh, someone will fix it eventually. Someone will eventually come to solve it, to kind of implement that change. But if we all kind of think like that, then when will that change come? So it's about being that person to stand up and to be, you know what, I'm not going to let this continue. I'm going to stand and actually try to fight against these injustices. And whether you receive praise for that, whether you don't, at least you've started the journey.
Absolutely.
Because it may not be an immediate change. It may not be a change 5 years, 10 years down the line. It will take time. But as long as you've started that journey, then the change you want to see will eventually come. And I feel like your Belonging series, exploring how people feel like they intertwine into communities at university, how they feel like their communities are increasing at university, and your role as Provost of EDI, I think you've started that movement. And I'm sure there's many that have come before you, 100%. And I think it's just our duty as students, or as, members of this community, just to be that change.
Absolutely.
And not to just wish for it to come.
Absolutely.
Because we have to live in a realistic world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My good friend Donald Palmer, and I always say he was one of the first pioneering black immunologists. He always says, his saying is, you have to be the change you want to see. All right. You can't expect others to change it for you. You have to do that change, that change work yourself.
Yeah.
When it comes to what you said about students and or black students and the retention rates or the attrition rates of black students, one of the things which I would probably highlight is, especially at somewhere like Imperial, and I heard this over and over again when I was interviewing students for my study, they come in, and for those who aren't Imperial students who are listening to this, the tariff to get into Imperial is A star, 2 A's minimum. Yeah. So you're coming in here, right? I'm looking at my two students here, and I know you two is coming in with some serious grades, right? And one of the things which I had noticed is that from a community perspective, from your parents, from others who know you, part of your superpower is your academic prowess. And then you come to somewhere like Imperial, where every student who's come here is A star, 2 A's, or 2 A stars at A, or 3 A stars, or 5 A stars. You know, you've got some people walking around just geniuses. Mm-hmm. And whereas before within your communities, you are the intelligent one, coming to terms with the idea that I'm just Mr. Average in this environment is something which was many students really felt challenged by. And then the other issue was the fact that of those students, you then felt the only thing that you were being visible for was the fact that you were different because of the color of your skin. Right? And that in itself made you hyper invisible. You couldn't be the last person into the lecture theatre because everyone would know that it's you who was the late one, because there's so few. Again, that lack of critical mass is something which is also challenging. And that underrepresentation is very challenging. So when you combine all of those things together, and you've got the pressure of your home community saying, you know, Baba's excellent, you know, and you've got that on top of, and then you're here and you're feeling, but no one's listening to me, no one's recognizing me, right? I'm not that great. That can weigh on people really hard. And where is the support to enable you to say, actually, all you need to do, we just need to help you to adapt to the situation that you're in right now. And that's why I really do try my best to encourage and say to the students, I'm here and we're here for you. Don't feel that you have to. There's Professor Sunday Popaola. He is just amazing, right? And we have tried to cultivate the environment where you know that you have us in your community, so that if anything happens, you can come and talk to us and we can help you. Because sometimes it's demystifying this mysterious place of academia. Once you understand the keys, you guys will fly with them. But it's giving you the keys to fly.
I think it's so important, because then when you think about the next generation and those applying to university, there's a lot of misconceptions, but also stigma that's been built on years of attrition, of, you know, places of higher education, for example, Imperial, being a place that's predominantly not like us. So to the students that want to apply to Imperial, but they're worried about not having people who look like them, or being the only student of color within their lectures or their tutorials, what do you say to give them a piece of encouragement?
Right. So for me, I probably am an oddity. I don't know. For me, it never really mattered what anybody else thought.
Mm.
And I'm not being boastful or anything like that. It just didn't matter. And I'm not saying that I didn't take their opinions seriously, but it wasn't that wasn't where I placed my sense of identity and sense of belonging. My sense of identity and my sense of self-worth came from my parents, their expectations, what they wanted for me, what they knew that I could do. And from that was where my source of strength came from. So I would say, don't be looking for the likes.
Mm.
Don't be looking for the popularity, but find your tribe, find your people who recognize and value you for you. Because unless you find that, it doesn't matter whether you're here at Imperial or whether you're somewhere else, you're still going to encounter those same issues. So in that sense, you need to find who you are. Go on that journey of discovery to discover who you are, and that will place you in the right position to be able to encounter whatever challenge that you come up against, right? And so, if anybody is looking to come to Imperial, make sure you've got your tribesmen. Make sure you've got your people who know you, who love you, who are there for you, whether or not you've got a top degree or you haven't got a top degree. They value you for you. And then when you get here, it doesn't matter what others are doing. You can be yourself, your authentic self, and progress onwards.
Mm. And I think another important thing just to add to that is your tribe and your community is not always people who look like you.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not always people who inherently came from the same places you did, were raised the same way you did. You'd be surprised as you continue to walk this story, this whole journey of life. You meet so much people that you never could have imagined
Absolutely.
that click so well. And I think university is definitely the place to actually meet those people.
Absolutely. Be curious.
Yeah.
Be curious. Go into every situation with curiosity. What is it that I can learn from this interaction, right? When I'm talking to this individual here, or if I'm talking to that individual, what is it that we can find out about each other which is of benefit, right? And that way, you'll not be disappointed because you'll always be finding out something new. And if you've got that curious spirit, that's what makes you thrive.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for those who even worry about, not finding anyone who does look like them, I think that's the true purpose of the ACS and why it does exist at Imperial and at other universities. And I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts about the ACS and what you think we've been doing well so far, and any kind of, piece of advice you have for people who are on committee, who are looking to be a part of ACS from now and years to come.
Right. One of the things when I came and I was looking at the ACS at Imperial, and it's not just about looking at the leadership, it's about what the community say about you. And so, as I said, when I was doing my study, over and over and over again, I was hearing, the ACS community is what has helped me. They have been my ride or die. If I want to be my authentic self, I go to ACS. The events I go to are at ACS. And it was that idea, or what I was hearing was ACS has provided that place of safety. That place of safety where I can go and I can be who I want to be. Whether that was Muslim students, whether that was Christian students, whether you wanted to sing in a choir, whether you wanted to paint pictures, whether you wanted to go to Afro Gala, whatever it was, they were accommodating and meeting the needs. So what I would say for future ACS leaders is look at how you can continue to meet the needs of the people who you're serving, your servant leaders. You're there to help people, especially in this space and in this place, to feel that they belong. That's what I would say is part of the purpose of ACS.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was actually the last question that I had. And I appreciate you so much for your words of wisdom they've given us so far. And the Belonging podcast will actually be in the description. So people, I will implore them to actually go and have a listen, because there's so much to be learned from that series.
You know what? I'm going to invite you to come on as one of my guests on Belonging. It's a reciprocal.
Yeah, podcast.
Yeah.
Something, whatever they call
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
all right. Because I would love to hear your story, because I can see just and hear from your questioning, you're a deep young man.
Thank you so much.
Continue to do what you're doing. Yeah, it's amazing what you're doing, and continue to shine that light.
Thank you. I mean, I always give plaudits to my parents. I feel like they did a lot to bring me to this moment where I am now. And, you know, at the same time, my religion also keeps me very grounded, I feel. And I think it's always important to reflect and think about your sense of belonging and how you can implement change no matter where you are. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Before we close, I just had an ACS event to actually promote. So the final event of this year is called Chop Chop. And for yourself and for those who are listening who don't know, Chop Chop is a night of food, music and talent. You can come and enjoy authentic dishes from across Africa and the Caribbean, and different cultures. And then you can watch the stage come alive with performances in spoken word, music, dance, and much, much more. With Afrobeats setting the vibe, you can expect good food, good energy, and a great time within the ACS community. So maybe there'll be some jollof rice, some fried rice.
Just tell me the day, man. Just tell me the day.
I will let you know, no problem, because we want to see as much people there as possible. And like you said, just building a community that listens to its people. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people listening there. If you go to Imperial and are part of the ACS, or if not, you're welcome to come along. Tickets will be out soon. So that is all I have to say. Once again, thank you so much, Wayne.
Thank you
for taking out the time to join us on this episode. And
thank you.
Yeah, wishing you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So that is all that we have for today. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you heard and saw, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We are now on YouTube, Spotify, and now Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, sorry. So make sure you turn on your post notifications so you get all the updates for all the episodes and when they will be releasing and dropping. And yeah, it's good to have you a part of the culture.